Everybody, and welcome. If you're new here, my name is Debbie and I'm a mixed media artist, and I have a Patreon where I teach art and so forth. So you're going to see some pictures today. If you absolutely love them and you would like to learn art, please do consider joining my Patreon, and you'll also see me using all these things, which I will get to in a second. And yeah, so all of the information is in the description box below. Speaking of, don't forget to leave a like and subscribe and a comment if you have the time. I do try to get back to all of them, but at the moment we're moving house, so I'm sort of a little bit behind, but I will catch up. Talking about art, I have had a lovely email from the people at Meeden Art, and they asked me if I would like to test some of their products and use them, and also they would offer me an affiliate program, which means that you guys, if you use the link they've given me, which I've put in the description box below, you get a discount on the products and I get a small commission, which doesn't cost you anything extra. I think we mostly know how affiliate links work. If you don't, let me know and I can explain further. But I've been using Meeden products for years, so that means that I was quite happy to say yes, because I wanted to see more of what they had. And one of the things that I have used a lot is their palettes, and this one here is a watercolor box, and I have my blues and purples in here. They're fabulous. I really like them. I love the quality, and like I said, it was very easy indeed to say yes to them. I don't like to review products that I don't like, obviously, because it's entirely wrong. However, I do like them, and I'm really looking forward to seeing more of what these things can do. So they invited me to choose 3 things. I chose some watercolor paper. This one is their 300 GSM, quite a nice big sheet, and I can cut pieces from this because I don't make pieces this big as a rule. So I shall show you in a few minutes what I've done with that. I also liked the look of this detail brush set because details are important in a picture, and although there's the trend at the moment, you know, everybody says they want to loosen up their painting, they want to do this and they want to do that. It'll pass. It's come and gone before. In the 40 years I've been painting, it has come and gone before, which is lovely. And nothing against painting loosely, but some of us like detail. I paint quite tight, and I really quite like the detail that I can put into my paintings. So that requires brushes that are suitable for the task. So I've got some here to test today. And I am completely addicted to acrylic markers, so when I saw that Meeden have a nice set of those, I thought I would ask for those as my 3rd thing, and I'm going to swatch those for you. Now, there are some metallic and sparkly ones in here, which, if you know my work well, you'll know that I don't use those. However, there is a little trick you can use with those, and that means that you can use them in everything, even for those of you who like muted things like I do. So I'm going to swatch those. The first thing we're going to do is put these aside and concentrate on the paper. Now, as I said, this paper is 300 GSM. It's also hot press, and the reason why I chose that one is because for mixed media work, as the sort of work I do, you need to have a nice smooth piece of paper to add details, because basically what I do is I lay down there are layers involved with mixed media work. The first layer is the fill-in layer, where we do big sort of brush strokes to get the shapes in. Then the second layer is the refining layer, where we come back in with another product as a rule, and it's usually things like coloured pencils and pastels. It might be more of the first layer, like a second layer of gouache or a second layer of watercolour, but we come in with another product quite often, and that means coloured pencils, inks, markers and things like that. And if you've got a really rough page, like I love cold press watercolour with all those rough, you know, it's just texture. Texture is wonderful. But for mixed media, it doesn't always work because you can't get the detail you need. You can push the the tooth of the paper down by scrubbing so hard with a coloured pencil that you've basically made it into a new product. But it's not what it's really all about, because there's no point having that wonderful texture if the following layer is just going to sort of push it out of existence. So I tend to go for the boring old smooth paper, because then I can add all the layers in that I want. And I'm going to show you a couple of examples. I've done a bit of preparation for this, as you can imagine. So first of all, I want to show you the paper itself, and without pulling the camera apart, it's smooth, it's really nice, and it's white, it's smooth, it's perfect. And this is also, I'm not sure if I can show you here, but it's gummed all round. So to get, it's a watercolor block, and in order to get the paper off, you slide a knife underneath. I usually work a little area loose here on the spine because it's gummed on all sides. Some of them have the back open, some of them are gummed on all sides. This is one of those. So you need a knife underneath the back and then slide a palette knife around it and the paper comes away. So we've got this fabulous big sheet of watercolor paper. I am going to use this today to do a couple of more things, like I want to swatch our watercolor markers, the acrylic markers onto it, and I'm also going to use another side here to make a little picture to use the brushes and show you how I might use some of them for detail work. So first of all, let's have a look at what I've done here. I've actually put this through its paces by making 4 pictures. They're quite different, using all sorts of mixed media products. So you can also see what it is that I do, and when I say mixed media, this is what I mean. So I taped it off because I've used a 1/4 inch tape here, which means that around the outside only 1 piece, but down the center 2 pieces next to each other, which is why you can see these little dots on here. Those are bits, they're my marks that I made to make sure it was all straight. But when I cut, I'll cut along those lines and they'll disappear into the frame. So this is what mixed media art, done the way I do it, looks like. And as I said, it's got a lot of detail in it, actually. It's not difficult. In fact, it's very easy to do indeed. But where these little brushes come in, for example, to bring those into the picture, is where you've got little details here on the bird, and you've got details on the buildings like the little windows and so forth, or small strokes made with a smaller brush. I've used a brush marker for some of these, but I'm going to show you that you can use a paintbrush as well, because to be fair, it is cheaper if you're on a budget, and a lot of us are, to be fair. It is cheaper to buy a box of nice paints, which Meeden already also have as well. You can buy a box of nice paints and a brush, and you can get all of the marks that you can get with a marker. Markers are a different delivery system for much the same product, mostly. The only place this differs, and actually, we're talking about this on my Patreon at the moment, about watercolor markers. Excuse me. They're often marketed at, and I'm talking about things like Tombows and Lyras, Faber-Castell, Goldfarber, those sorts of ones. They are often marketed at beginners, but they're not easy to use. In fact, they can make it look like a 4-year-old's gotten into your paint supplies. So sometimes a brush and paint is easier. And you can do all of the details with a brush and paint. And you can reuse that brush. And if you look after it, I've got brushes here. In fact, I can grab one. Can I or can't I? Like I said, we're packing. Everything's packed up. No, can't find it. Anyway, you'll have... Oh, here it is. Sorry. This one is a brush that I've had for 28 years. And I'm still using it. It's a good quality golden Taklon brush. These are good quality brushes as well, and I believe a Taklon version too. If you look after them, you can have them for ages, whereas a marker won't last quite as long quite often. So it's worthwhile looking at brushes and learning to use them properly, if I can use a word, phrase like that, because you can see here what you can do. Now, I've used some pan pastels on here. I've used some acrylics. I've used gouache. I've used watercolor markers, as I said, and all sorts of other things. There are all sorts of other pastels here too. There are lots of neo colors. There are Neo Art 6901s, the new ones from Caran d'Ache, and they all work beautifully on this fabulous white paper. And as I said, if you can hear that, it's quite thick. It's beautiful quality, and I love it. I'm going to use it a lot more in my work. You'll be seeing it again. So yeah, what will happen here is I'll cut these down and frame them, and we will have something to be going on with. But what I'm going to do now is I'm going to prepare another page on here, and we can swatch these markers. I shall be right back. Okay, so the first thing now is I have taped off this page, and I've done it quite specifically because this gives me a little bit of room to do a sketch. And these, what I love about this size of paper is, yes, of course, you can use it in one piece. If you do larger pieces, I tend not to. But if you tape it off to these sizes, you can also easily buy photo mounts quite cheaply to fit these specific sizes, because they do come in specific sizes. So that's something that I tend to take care of before I paint the picture. In the past, I have made a few, back in the day, I've made a few mistakes where I've made a size of paper that I think will work really well. I've painted something on there only to find that it's a non-standard size, and you have to go and have bespoke framing, which can cost an absolute fortune, especially if you're painting to sell. It costs a lot of money. So I tend to research my sizes for the photo mounts, the little white, usually frames that go round things. And I do that first, and then I sort out my size of paper. So in half and in quarters, which has worked on this one. This time I've given myself a little bit more real estate so that we can swatch these acrylic markers. Let me make some room on the desk, speaking of real estate, and get them out because they're nice. They're really nice colours in here. I'm actually looking forward to seeing what they can do. Now, I've primed most of them because, of course, you don't want to sit here while I do that endlessly. Really nice box they're in as well. I tend to store my acrylic markers horizontally because it's the recommended practice, and I do that a lot. So this box, they'll go back in the box, but I will put it on its back so that they can be stored horizontally. But when I use them, it's really nice to have them all there. I like the fact that you can see what colours they are, of course, because the caps are the colour of the ink, and we can have a look and see how accurate that is as well. There's a bit of a magnetic closure on here, which is handy, and a swatch card on the side with both the names of the colours and a number, and a bit of other information, the usual sort of stuff, including how to get them going. So let's do that first. Like I said, I've done almost all of them, but I did leave one because, gosh, sorry about the noise. I did leave one because it is nice to show you just in case you're very new to these. Now, this is good advice for any acrylic markers, and I use this same technique with all of them. First of all, to shake them. You can hear a mixing ball in there because there are some solids in there and there is a liquid binder and flow medium usually. So give them a good shake. Then the next thing I do is remove the cap, turn the cap upside down, and give it a couple of pumps. Not only does this get that going, but any air that's in there will come out then and make the ink flow better. Then, of course, what we do is we up and down a few times until the paint starts to flow. I tend to do it a couple of times quickly and then a couple of times quite slowly. And you'll see the paint starting to wick into the nib any minute now. This is why I haven't done all 30 on camera. But it takes a while, takes as long as it takes. So whilst we're waiting, these are 2mm nibs. So they're quite a nice, sizable nib. There we go. You can see the paint coming down now. It's like a watched kettle. If you're online or doing something where somebody's watching you, like this sort of setting, takes forever, but it's not that bad. Right, so, and we have lift off, as it were. Now, the good thing about these, and as I'll show you as we swatch, which is why I want all of this sort of area, these are great for either fine lines, and they're a nice rich colour, and they cover nicely as well, so you can make fine lines, or you can smudge them. And don't underestimate the smudging bit. It's going to make your fingers mucky. But don't underestimate the smudging bit, because it's quite a good way to do the effects that you see in the pictures that I just showed you. I'm just washing it off my fingers, because even though it's non-toxic, I don't leave these products on my fingers if I can get out of it. We don't want that. Back to this again. You can see here in the undergrowth and in these places and so forth, like that down here and all around here, where it's nice and smudged and blurry. And what I do with that is use this technique here. So your fingers are one of your greatest tools. You can just put the paint down, and while it's wet, you got to get after it. While it's wet, give it a smudge, and you can do all sorts of things. And then you can come back in with other mixed media products and go over the top. That's a Meeden Art 6901 by Caran d'Ache. The new ones, let me grab a random pencil. This is a Derwent drawing in Solway Blue, and you can go over the top with that as well. And this is what I love about these, is even though these are acrylic, and a lot of people will, especially if you've used Liquitex, I do love Liquitex, but it dries very shiny and it's hard to layer over. What these have got going for them is the fact that they dry matte, and you can put things over the top. So that's one sort of pencil. Here's another one. Here's a Caran d'Ache, and you can go over the top with all of these. So that is a huge bonus, because mixed media is first and foremost about layering. So I won't swatch the white one for obvious reasons, but it's white. Let's grab some of these. There are some colors here that are jumping out at me straight away. I love these earthy tones. Here's another one. So, you know, these are just fabulous. So this one, the first one I have grabbed is Terracotta. Always give them a shake first, because again, you can hear the mixing bowl there. And by moving them around like this, they're just really, really nice colors. Very nice. That's Terracotta. This one here is Bronze. Now, you would expect bronze to be a little bit metallic, and it isn't always. It's just a bronze color in this case, but a nice brown. You've got a bit of working time, but not huge amounts. You can mix these a little bit, but I tend not to, which is why I like these colors that are so very, very nice. I don't have to mix them to get some nice colors. The main thing for me is their smudginess, and they dry velvet matte. This one's natural oak, very similar to Terracotta. Just a little bit different, subtle difference. So you can then go over them again with other colors, of course, and keep those lovely effects going. Let's try this green. This green's nice. This one's beetle green, and it's just perfect. I like a muted green like this one here. Bless its heart, is not going to get much use, but like I said, you can mix them a bit, so you can knock that color back. Beetle green is very nice. Let's go in with this horrid, this one's, it's not called horrid green, it's called grass green. It is a useful color, don't get me wrong, but it is very, very bright. But if you use this over one of these other colors and then blend it, as you can see, you can knock the color right back and make a muted color out of this. Let's try another one that's quite bright. This one is rose red, and it's quite a bright pink. Not a color I reach for a lot. Let's have a look at it in its state at first. Mind you, flowers and things like that, these colors are absolutely necessary. Like, you would look at this as a flower and think how beautiful it is, but not always as a paint. But if we go over one of these other colors nearby, again, you can really mute these colors down. So don't look at a set like this. I mean, quite often we'll look at a set and say, well, I don't use that color, and there are too many of that color in the set, so I won't buy it. You can do things with these. Don't give up based on that. trust me, there's lots you can do. This one is Deep Scarlet Red. And it's not as deep or as scarlet as I expected, actually. It's another one of these really nice muted flower colours. Looks great on a building. And when these are dry, let me grab a pencil here. This one will do fine. You can go over the top then and just really add in other colours over the top and do what you do. That's how I do it. Let's have a look at another. This is a nice blue. I do like this one. This is Azure. And it's a nice blue. Goes well over these others. And you see those lovely cloudy effects. So quite often you'll have quite a big marker and you think, well, you know, what can I do with that? Because like I said before at the intro, markers are marketed quite often at beginners, and they're not for beginners. They can be quite honestly a horror show, but you can learn pretty quickly what to do with them. It's not the end of the world. It's just that I'm gathering a group of people, all of whom have said the same thing. Are saying, well, I bought these markers and look at this. It looks like a child's done it. Yeah, so then we can do things. And smudging is one of the first things we do. This one is Holiday Blue. Again, a nice colour. Quite bright, but quite useful. Before I really get my fingers dirty, this is Pale Yellow. This is one of these super, super, super useful colours in painting. And yeah, it goes over the others beautifully. I like the fact that it's reasonably opaque as well. In fact, this is a good time. I said I wasn't going to swatch the white, but one of the good tests is, and I haven't done this before, I do promise, is it a colour that's nice and opaque, or does it pick up what's underneath? We shall find that out. It's reasonably opaque, but how does it dry? That's the main thing. Does it dry opaque? Because with things like this, quite often you'll get to a situation where they're beautiful when they come out of the tube. You leave them for half an hour and you think, the hell's that? Who did that? Oh, that was that yellow that I liked. They change. So we'll see. See if it stays white. Some of them will also pick up the colour from underneath, and instead of being white, there'll be a paler version of whatever's underneath. Right, this one is Lilac. Another nice colour and another useful one. If you're any sort of landscape artist, you need purples. They are vital. I'm deliberately leaving some of these, and you'll see why at the end. This one is Lightning Yellow. I like the names. Nice bright yellow, but it's a nice clear yellow as well. Useful and sunny. I'm not doing these in any particular order, as you can see. I like doing some things like this where I don't put them in colour order, like the rainbow of red, orange, yellow, green, blue, etc. And I don't do them in the colour they're put in. I don't do them in colour of light to order of light to dark. It's not necessary, because if you do that, you'll never see other combinations. When I'm finished here, you'll be able to see, oh, right, I would never put that together. See, for example, these colours here, they're so sunny and fresh. I'm thinking of springtime. It's autumn here at the moment. This one is Marigold, and I've been waiting for autumn all year, and now I'm thinking about spring. Just can't please some people. It's another nice, deep coloured yellow. Nicely saturated so far, the whites and the other one, what was that called? That was pale yellow, wasn't it? Yes, pale yellow. They're not doing too badly. Quite often, it's not a mark of anything other than the fact that this is how these are. You have to go over some light bits twice, maybe even 3 times, especially if you've got, when you're layering, again, can I grab my sheet of examples here? Not really, so I haven't done it in this one. If you layer some things over a darker background and you want a bit of a pop of a brighter colour, you have to do it sometimes a couple of times, because the colour you can't expect it to be really, really rich over the top. If you want that sort of richness, that's where you reach for an oil pastel or even these wax pastels. That's a different kettle of fish. But when you're using markers like this and acrylic markers over the top and putting light over dark, sometimes you have to do it more than once. It doesn't mean anything. It just means that's how that paint works. And part of the reason for that is, in order for a marker to work and for the paint to flow down the barrel into the tip and make it useful, it's got to be quite thinned down. And the payoff is you can't get the rich pigment that you might get out of a tube, for example. So, you know, I think we have to use these products and paint with expectation. Sometimes we will get a situation where it all works perfectly and somehow someone has got the magic formula, but usually you have to understand that if you're going to do some of these things, you're breaking the rules. And also sometimes with mixed media art, we're using products in a way that the manufacturers never dreamt of. They didn't intend us to use them in the way we do in the mixed media art world. And as I've said very often on these videos, and it's worth repeating here, when I went to school in Australia in the 1980s, you would not admit to wanting to be a mixed media artist. Your art teacher wouldn't have allowed it, and they wouldn't know what you're talking about. So you would have been just seen as a bigger weirdo than usual. So we're doing things that aren't meant to happen. For example, putting down wax pastels and then putting coloured pencil over the top, watercolour over the top of ink. Nobody saw that coming at the time, and the manufacturers can't guess all the weird things we're going to do with our art products. So sometimes it is not a mark of a problem. It is a mark of this is how it is. We're changing all the rules. We're doing things differently. Sometimes we're going to have to sort of do things differently on the page. If that doesn't make sense, do let me know and I'll try and explain a bit better, but I'm sure you know what I mean. So moving on here with another yellow. This one is sunflower. So you may as well put all these yellows together here in the top corner. Again, very, very nice. I like the fact that even the bright colours are quite agreeable. They're not gaudy. This one is acacia. You certainly get your yellows in this set. I'm not 100% sure that both of those were needed, but maybe they would look different over different things. Here again, I'm swatching onto a piece of white paper. I don't work on white paper all that often. I mean, I do to begin with, but by the time I've built up all the layers, there's no white paper left. So swatching onto white paper has limited value for this sort of thing. But have a look at my other videos and you'll see what I mean and you'll see how it works. Orange. Sometimes we've got to swatch onto white paper because, like I said, we all start somewhere with it. And I love that orange. That's beautiful. That's a real fox orange. I'm painting a lot of foxes at the moment. Just let me grab across here. And sorry about reaching across the camera, but I do have a book here to hand. This is one I'm working on at the moment for myself and also filming for my Patreons. And again, all of this smudgy loveliness, that's what's going to be really useful with these markers. And that colour for foxes and birds and things like that, that's just perfect for the foxes. So yeah, there are lots of ways we can get these jobs done. I'm looking forward to using them. Maroon. Another nice warm colour for the time of year, one hopes. It's a nice version, actually. It's quite a lot brighter than usual. I would have actually thought that we've got that crimson somewhere hanging back here. This one here, deep scarlet red, that's more of a muted pink, whereas this is what I would have thought was more of a deep scarlet red, but it doesn't matter. It's a nice colour. When it's wet, it looks different, of course. Mostly, some of them are not exactly the same as the barrel, but they're mostly, you can tell what you're getting. Another blue. This one's cerulean blue. Quite a light one. Gosh, I've got some on my finger there, but you can see the things you can do with these just by accident. Let's go over here and give it a chance, shall we? Nice bright blue, very similar to the other one there, but different enough to be worthwhile. And this one is Prussian blue. This is a lot lighter version of Prussian blue than what I normally have, but it's a nice colour, lovely and rich. You've got some really primary colours here, because of course not every red, blue and yellow are primary red, blue and yellow, but these here are extremely close. That can wait, that one can, no, that one can't wait. That's the other one. So we've got two more regular colours, and then I'll show you what I do if I have a set with metallics and glitters, because I don't use them as a rule. I'm very happy there's no neons in here, because I don't use neons, and I feel bad about not using them. It feels like a waste, but they're not my scene, I'm afraid. Neutral grey 5, that's always a good one to have. It's quite a light and, like it says, a neutral grey. Interesting. You can do fabulous backgrounds with these. And the last one in this set is Aubergine, which is, again, not an expected colour for aubergine, but very nice purple. Useful for, again, flowers, and it marries beautifully with this other one here, which is the lilac. They go together. Like I said, this is an unexpected sort of colour for aubergine. I wouldn't have guessed that, but here we go. So those are the normal colours in the set, and now that these are well dried, you can see that they could probably have another go. The white's pretty good though, even over some of these darks. It's a nice opaque white, which is useful, and it's not much trouble. If I have this one here, just to go over a detail a second time. We enjoy the process, that's why we paint. Right, so what we've got here is we've got 3 metallics and 4 sort of glittery colours actually. And they're called Flash Aubergine, Flash Blue, Flash Yellow and Flash Pink. Those are the more glittery ones. And these are a metal bronze, silver and gold. Now, I don't use these either. But if you use this smudging technique, you can really push them back, and they become just colours. So in the set, they're in the set of 30. Let's try this one first. This one's the metal bronze. So whereas it's quite metallic and it contains mica, you can push it back and it's less metallic. It becomes more of a beautiful autumn brown, but it's got some light behind it, if that makes sense. And then if you combine that, it's not quite dry yet, but if you combine that then with coloured pencils, it works particularly well. And you can use it for effects and things like that. So don't sort of throw the baby out with the bathwater here and say, right, well, I'm not going to use any of those. That's a waste of time. They're still quite useful. See, silver becomes a backlit grey, and it can be used with other things. So the mica is still there, it's still a metallic colour, but when you use the technique that I use, it pushes it back and it stops it being so sort of bright and shiny. If you want bright and shiny, for example, if you've got something in a picture you're painting that needs metallic, they're handy to have and they're very nice. I like this colour the best actually. This one's gold. Oops, and I've spilt some there. It's not the same as the barrel, but there again, push it back, make it do what you want it to do. It'll still be a little bit shiny, but it's not nearly, if I just put that there like so, as you can see, it's definitely a metallic colour, but when it's pushed back, it's just got a little bit of glitter in it, and it's not very much. That glitter is usually mica. Same here, speaking of glitter, this one's the Flash Aubergine. So it's a lot more glittery, but again, use it in conjunction with these others and it behaves totally differently. It becomes a very pleasing pink. And of course, you can then combine it with other colours. Let me just grab here. Just using some That might work. Pan pastel this morning. Not much on there, is there? But just grabbing another one here if I can, and knocking things on the desk, of course. That's just typical me. When you put pan pastels over the top, you get different colour effects again. So you get a veil of colour then with the pan pastel. And I'm just using my regular eyeshadow applicators here. It takes away some of the glitter, but it still allows that beautiful colour to shine through. And this is the whole point of mixed media art, is never ever underestimate the power of the layers that you're creating, because layers are they're just absolutely necessary. Everyone does something to the finished painting, and we always allow the layer before to shine through so that you can see it. Otherwise, there's no point doing it. This one is flash blue, and it's quite a rich blue as well. Same deal. So you get a different blue this way. And by putting these other colours with it, I really quite like these dirty, murky colours that I can create with all sorts of things. So yeah, really don't mind them. This is a really nice soft pink, actually, that one. This one is flash pink. So what on earth was that? That was flash aubergine. This one's flash pink. And again, quite sort of out there, very Las Vegas, until you push it back a bit and do other things to it. And then it becomes a very, very agreeable mid-pink. It's still got a little bit of glitteriness in it, but this is not a finished painting. Mind you, I probably could sell that, be worth millions. This one's flash yellow. Finally, the last but not least. You might argue that that's a second gold, and it kind of is. But again, do things with it. And then now that these are dry, because of course that's super important with mixed media, that I often actually tell people, they say, well, you know, mixed media doesn't work for me, I've tried it. The one thing you absolutely have to do is to allow your layers to dry, because coloured pencil, for example, will go over all of these, but it won't be happy about going over something that's wet. So this is a Derwent Drawing Mars Black. You can see here, this is not dry, these are. Makes a big difference. But all of these are good for this, even that. Just imagine the effects you can get with these. And again, allowing that little bit to shine through. Works really well. My gold standard will be my Derwent Drawing Chinese White. And as you can see, it comes over the top beautifully. This is my favourite white pencil. Hands down. I know the Holbein one's good, not a patch on this one. Yeah. It's really good when you can use these light colours over the dark, even though these have got beautiful coverage and they've got a really quite nice range of colours. I don't know that some of these, the blues and so forth, I might have put another colour in, and the yellows as well. But at the same token, they are subtly enough different to matter. And it depends what you want to use them with. And this is the thing with mixed media. Every single painting you do is likely to be a different combination of things. So, you know, you've got painting number 1, painting number 2, and all of these sorts of things. They've got different, so for example, painting number 1 might be a gouache base, pastels and acrylic markers. Painting number 2 might be a watercolour base, coloured pencil and pan pastel, or something like that, and maybe some oil pastel over the top of that. And why not? Let's load on some ink. So, you know, it's just the sky's the limit, and which is why I love mixed media. And most people who have come lately to mixed media, realizing that it is actually all right, and you can do it without being arrested, they find that it's just incredibly freeing. So you need the sorts of materials you can work with. Some of them are better than others. It's how it is in the world. These are a particularly good result. I love the fact that they're so velvet matte. I can layer over the top of them either with more of the same thing or with the other things that I use, like coloured pencil, like pan pastels, like this other pastel here. And white is always the test because the whites just don't always go. Let's take a brown just to make a point. This is Neo Colour 1, which is not the water-soluble variety, but they all go beautifully over the top. Really nice. So yeah, you'll be seeing a lot of these in my work in the future because they are a perfect addition to the stable. And I've got colours in this set that I haven't got in anything else. Like I said, I probably wouldn't put glitter ones in, but they're in the kit because, of course, this kit was not designed for me. And it's something for everyone. But if you find yourself with a kit like this, you can still do things with them. You just have to do them differently. And that's, of course, that's where sort of knowing what to do and what to put where comes into it. Right, the next thing I want to do is show you these brushes. So I'm going to put all this aside and find some paint or some ink and so forth. And we'll put the brushes through their paces and have a look what they can do. Right, so brushes. These are a good kit of brushes and it's a 15-piece set, and as you can see there are a few interesting ones here. Got quite a lot of round brushes that we use quite regularly, but I'm going to use some watercolour just to test each one out again, swatch with the brushes. They're nylon hair, aluminium ferrule wood handle. The handle is also an ergonomic grip, which is very nice. It sits very comfortably in the hand to be used. They need to be just washed out because, of course, like most things, that they've got a bit of conditioning in the bristles. What they don't have, and thank goodness for that, is they haven't got those stupid plastic sleeves, because those sleeves that you find on brushes ruin more brushes than they save the hair. If you get a piece of hair trapped and push the sleeve on and the hair stays trapped because you didn't see it, then you've got this piece of hair sticking out forever, which has to be trimmed or, you know, whatever. Not great. The set isn't in a box that's designed to be kept, and most people don't anyway. I have food tins, which, if I can grab this without actually throwing my brushes everywhere, I cover them in paper and I put my brushes in, and that's where these are going. They'll go into a tin so that I can use them. So the packaging is not the sort of packaging that's designed to be kept. However, there's some information on it, which is also useful, especially with some of these. So what we've got here, we've got some round liners, flat angled filbert and an angled spot, which is obviously this one here. Someone has crimped the ferrule. Just as an indication here, basically this silver part is called the ferrule. It holds the bristles together and it holds the bristles onto the handle. That's all that is. So if you see ferrule mentioned, it's the silver part on a brush, usually silver, sometimes gold. I've got a gold one, but it's usually silver. And the spotter has just been crimped so that the ferrule is bent. So it's pretty much the same as the one next to it, except it's angled. And sometimes this can be really quite useful for getting into areas. It depends what you're doing. So the round brushes, and we know a round brush here again, Brush Anatomy 101. A round brush has a round ferrule, and therefore the bristles are in a round shape, as in round this way, not at the tip. A flat brush has got a crimped ferrule, so it's the same make, absolutely the same make, but at the end of the manufacturing, the ferrule is crimped on the end, whereas with this one it isn't. And what that crimping does is, instead of making the brush round, it splays the bristles out to create a flat brush. And again, flat brushes have their place. So round brushes are short strokes. The reason why is you haven't got much hair here, and many long bristles in this brush, for example. Let's take this one, the bent spotter. Let's take any one of these will do. You've only got a little bit of real estate here, so you can't put much water or much paint into that. It just won't hold it. This one, on the other hand, is a liner brush, and this one has got a longer filament here, so you can put much more paint in there, much more water, but you also have to be aware of the consistency, especially when you're using acrylic gouache or gouache. This needs a lot more of an ink consistency of paint so that the water and therefore the paint can flow off the bristles and onto your page. I'll show you that when we come to it because it's quite an important point. So the longer the hairs on a brush, the longer the bristles, the harder it is to control initially, but the longer stroke you can make with it and the more you can use it before you have to reload it, which is quite important sometimes. So we've got flat brushes here and there for bold strokes. If you're not very bold with this size of brush, this is a detail set, like I said, and that's what I wanted. Angled is for detailed coverage. Oh yeah, do we have an angled one? Here's an angled one. Angled refers to the fact that the bristles are cut or placed on an angle. And this here is a flat brush because it's got a crimped flat ferrule, and the bristles are angled. And when I taught folk art back in the day, and that's why the name of my art school is the Folk Art Factory, because I've been using that now for 40 years, these brushes were used for different shading techniques and different things like that. So that's why all of the brushes are really quite important. They've all got a job to do. Then we've got a filbert. Filbert is a flat brush, crimped here, but it's rounded on the end, cat's tongue sometimes. It is used for getting the edges nice and smooth, and you can do different techniques with this as well. And the angled spotter brush is a tiny little round brush with not much going for it in the way of bristles because you don't need much. Really good for putting highlights in eyes and details and so forth like that. So let's take these out and see what they can do. Just get them all out. Like I said, it's not designed to be kept. So actually, I tell you what though, that might be really nice paper for a paper collage. It's just slightly smooth and shiny. I really do try to get my money's worth. I'll use the paper as well. Let's just start randomly with the first brush I come to. Now you need some water for this next bit and you need some paint. So we've got both of those things. The first thing with a new brush is to wet it and get rid of any dressing that you might have in the bristles. And then of course we try to choose a colour that we can all see. I'm going to go with this Winsor & Newton Ultramarine because it's bright. So a flat brush will make a flat stroke. It will also make a nice thin stroke if you use it on the side. And as you can see, the amount of pressure gives you the different strokes. So it's a useful brush to have. And I like the way these feel in the hand because small but mighty. So that's the first one. That's our flat brush. Do we have another flat brush? I've got several here. Here is an angled brush. And again, just getting rid of any dressing that might be in the bristles and back into that appallingly bright blue. This one gives much the same effect. I haven't got enough water on there, as you can see, not flowing properly. But the idea of this angle, and you can splay it out a bit, the idea of this angle, let me see if I can show you on here. We take, instead of the dark blue, let's put some water on the brush. Let's go into a very light colour blue. This one's quite light. So you go into a bit of light blue. Sorry, I think that was off camera. Make sure you've got enough water. You don't want to hose it down, but make sure there's enough water there and that the paint is distributed across the brush. Then what you do is you go in with the tip only into the really deep blue and then blend it on a palette. Blend it one way and blend it the other. And then when you use that, you'll get a dual effect. You see a little bit of dark blue there and the lighter blue there. And depending on how much water is in there, will depend on how quickly it travels across the brush and blending it and so forth. So you can get a graded coverage like that. So this angled brush is good for that. And that's extremely useful when making flowers. If you want to make flowers that are quite quick and easy, this is a really good brush for that. So the angled shader or angled brush, and this one is a flat brush because of the flat crimp on the ferrule. Another one is the cat's tongue or filbert. Same thing. when you put your brushes in the water, make sure they're not full of, you know, dripping along the whole of the ferrule with water, because if you're not careful, when you go to paint something, that water will run down and flood your paint absolutely everywhere and look vile. And also ruin your work pretty much completely. I'm just going to, I tend to like to work the paint a little bit through the brush with some of these. This has a particular footprint, and as you can see, you could use this for bricks, for foliage sometimes, that sort of thing. It's a nice smooth brush to use, and the rounded edge means that you don't have any harsh edges. If you were to paint something, you can get, you know, you can make the edge a little bit sort of more animal-like if you were to find a blue, whatever the hell this is. But also it's great for a smooth coverage. These feel nice to use, actually. The quality of brushes has gone on enormously. Right, let's stay with flat brushes. What other flat brushes? We've got another flat brush here, which is quite simply a smaller version of flat brush number 1. This is a 0. The other one was a 1, I believe. Yes, the other one was a 1. The number, of course, refers to the size, and they're reasonably universal. But here again, because it's a small brush, actually for any brush, but I tend to not necessarily go into the paint and then straight onto the paper, but onto the palette and work the paint through the brush. And it's the same as this one here. It's not too different in size either. But of course, because this is a detail set, they're all going to be on the small side. So same brush. Right, I think that's all the flat brushes. I bet there's one I miss. There always is. Let's have a look at these spotters. This is the first one here in the round brushes. And probably come in here actually. Spotters are for tiny details. Little, as it says on the tin, little details. You can use them for strokes, and you'll get a reasonably good one too, even from such a small brush. But crucially, you can also get these really small effects, which is useful. This one's got a few hairs splaying out on the side. That happens sometimes. It's annoying, but it happens. Again, this is real life. So yeah, that's the only sort of downside on that one. The angled spotter is for getting into corners with, and sort of detail, really a lot of detail work, but it will give you much the same strokes. Again, you can get some longer strokes and you can make patterns with it, and on its end you make little dots. There's a little hair there that wants talking to. So yeah, that's what these are for. Then we have this one here, which is a number 2 round. Let's have a look at the size. Look, let's just grab them at random. This is the number 2 round. It's a nicely shaped one. It's got plenty of reservoir there to take the paint in the thicker part of the bristles. And you can do a lot of varied lines with these. So very, very thin on the end, because as you can see, the bristles here on the end are super thin, but the thicker bristles up further will hold more paint. So you can do just different patterns depending on what you want to paint. Especially with folk art and decorative painting, these sorts of things are super useful, but I still use them now, actually. Next one is a 0 round. Will give you much the same sort of performance. And this one is almost long enough to perform as a liner. So you can get some really quite intricate sorts of designs, but then come back with the same brush and create things like ferns and random, again, whatever the hell this is. The other side goes differently. little teardrop shapes, basically stamping with it, but really quite useful for filling in details on pictures. So any of these will do that, or should do that. This one's a 2/0 round brush, same performance. And yeah, it's nice. Lovely smooth action on all these, and the ergonomic grip is comfortable, especially if you're at it for a while. I'm going to put these into 2 different sets. 3 liners. This one's the largest. This one is a number 4. Number 4 round brush is a super useful size because you can do all of the above except bigger, and also make other strokes and things like that, broader, longer, all sorts. And sometimes in the undergrowth, when I do undergrowth in a forest, I'll make lots of these sorts of patterns. And if we grab back the famous huge sheet of pictures that I did before, that's all of these leaves. It's the undergrowth, just these bits of details here, and other random leafy shapes, all made with the brush the same as I'm doing here. And you need a round brush for that. I've used a brush marker as well, as I said before, but you don't need to. You just need a round brush that works brilliantly. So for example, you would get some water on there, make sure that there's enough, and some paint, make sure there's enough, and you then proceed to make your upside down for leaves in a canopy, or this way up for the foliage that you find along a path, that sort of thing. You can make a whole tree that way, actually, just by continually layering. So you might go back in now and get some more paint, make that a little bit darker, and go over the top. It will be much more effective once it's dry, because like I said, with mixed media, always allow it to dry. But you see, as you come down here and adding more and more paint each time, just the same colour, ultramarine, but you get a lot of depth and still retain that beautiful texture. Effortless sort of patterns, leaves and textures with a little round brush. And that's why I chose this set for my one to test. This one's got a few sticky out bristles as well, which would be better if it didn't, but there you go. There are schools of thought on whether you should cut or pluck, because I won't put up with them for very long if they get in my way. If they don't, then that's fine. I'll learn to live with them. And sometimes they do settle down, to be fair. I wouldn't pull them out because, see, they have settled down. That happens. So don't immediately go for the scissors and cut it all off level with the handle. They have settled down. Sometimes it's just static electricity. Sometimes it's newness. Sometimes the brush hasn't been stored correctly. Hardly the case on a new set. But they will settle sometimes. And I wouldn't pull them out because quite often they're only held in there by the volume of hairs. They're not always glued. Sometimes they are, but not always. But this has settled down just fine, and it's made a beautiful little brush, and you can make all the same sorts of patterns with it. Really quite useful. Nice for wavelets and so forth. Right, last but not least, we've got these guys, which are the liners, and we have a 3 and 4/0 in size. I'm going to start with the 3, which is bang in the middle. And again, this time you need to make sure your paint is really quite liquid, as in ink consistency. And that will mean it's a bit lighter than usual, as in the colour's not there, because you can't have both. But this allows you to make a long and a curly line. I am so out of practice for folk art. I don't do it anymore, so it doesn't bother me very much. But as you can see, this is not quite wet enough because of the dragging. So you just play with it until it is. And that's what these brushes are for. so that you can get long and very elegant lines. Super useful for painting power lines, super useful for painting trees. You don't have to have the curvy lines, but if you want the curvy lines, this is the brush that will give it to you. This one's the 4.0, and again, lots and lots of water, more water than you think you need. Ink consistency, and it'll do the same thing for you. And like you can combine this with the round brush to create things like little leaves and what have you, and plants and foliage. You can also stamp a little bit harder. Obviously, we don't want to ruin the brush, so don't do it too much, but you can make patterns with it. This is essentially a round brush, so you can use it the same way you've used the other round brush. The main thing is the longer the bristles, the more water you have to have in order for the paint to flow from the bristles onto the page. And you keep your ink-like consistency paint. You can also use ink, of course, but because as mixed media artists, we're using all sorts, we can, same thing. This one's the 2.0. There's not a lot in them, to be fair, as far as the size of brush and the stroke it does. You can push down on the brush a bit more, and the bigger ones will have more hair and give you more sort of bang for your buck, as it were. So, you know, this very long one here, if you really push down and let that go, as you can see, it holds a hell of a lot of paint. It's starting to run out now, but it holds a lot more paint than the other brushes. So this one is the number 2. And gosh, I can't find my number 4 now. That was number 2 round. There is a 3 here as well. And again, the same thing. You can do the same thing and it will hold just about as much. It's not... To be fair, you might argue, well, look, there's no difference between those lines, and you'd be spot on because there isn't. However, this is not usually the way you're going to use the brushes. Normally, when you're using these sorts of brushes, you will be painting something, not just practicing strokes and making marks. But each one is slightly different. Each size is slightly different, and when you get down into the smaller sizes that are for very, very fine details, there doesn't appear to be much in between the brushes, to be fair. So they come in a kit. You've got them all, use them all. You'll find different ways to use them based on what you like to do. But as brushes go, I love, like I said, I love the feeling of the ergonomic handle. The bristles feel like quality to use. And as I said, if you've got some sticking out, just chill, wet them, use them. Quite often they'll settle down. And you've got a nice selection here too of detail brushes. There's not much in the brush world, really. I mean, we've got flat brushes which can go really, really big, and you've got round brushes that can be sort of really very round and quite large. But for what we're doing here, for the most part, when you're doing detail, you won't be using brushes that big. I mean, some of them are big enough to paint the wall with. You don't need those. These are all about details, and what I want these for is for detailed work. I'll just grab my sketchbook again here. This is going back to June this year, but see all of these marks here that you make, little details, tiny little parts of eyes. The spotters are perfect for making highlights in eyes and little claws and things like that. So it depends. I do a lot of birds. The eyes are super, super important. So you'll have the ring of colour around the eye. Then you'll have some more details around the outside of that. And for that, you need these detail brushes. Even off in the distance where you might have a little house or something like that. Here again, you'll probably notice, you'll have recognised some of these, especially if you've been following my channel for a while. All of this work, and that's what I was after. I don't want a brush that I can paint the ceiling with. I want something that I can paint little tiny details in the birds with, and flowers and what have you. These These take a while, these leaves, and I've done this with a marker. But as you can see by the shapes of these marks here, you can use these little brushes, and this is where you need a detail brush. So if you're wondering, is thinking, why do I need such a tiny brush? It depends how much detail you put into your work. I've seen and admired artists who paint something with three broad strokes, and you can see, oh my God, it's a rabbit. I can't do that. I'm assuming it's just not the way I paint, and it's not what I want to do. So what I want to do is I like to get bogged down in detail. As you can see from here, there's obviously something wrong somewhere in my head, but all of these sorts of imaginary fill-in things, and then you've got our bird and what have you, all of this, it's all about detail, and all of this is possible with brush and paint if you've got a good set. This is a good set. It has got a nice selection of brushes in it, and you'll see me using them. I'll feature these as much as I possibly can because they're nice. They're nice and light as well. That's good, but yet they feel balanced. And like I said, the ergonomic handle, I've not got many. Well, actually, I don't think I've got any. Most of my brushes are just straight. So this is the first time I've used something like this, and it feels really nice to handle. Right, so that was Meeden brush, paper, and some acrylic markers. I'll be interested to know what you think and what you think of these. And like I said, don't forget there will be a code. And if you want to buy any of these, you'll get a discount, or anything else in the store, I understand, you'll get a discount, and I will earn a small commission at no extra cost to you. And if you like what you've seen here, don't forget to leave a like and subscribe and follow along, that sort of thing. Leave a comment. And do consider joining my Patreon, where you'll see me using these a lot more in pictures, and you can see some of the work in my sketchbook and also on my big piece of paper, which I'm off now to cut up and frame. You'll see all of that in action and learn how to do it. That's the main thing, is not just seeing it, but learning how to do it and having it all explained to you. I'll leave you at that point and see you next time. Have a great week. Bye for now. Bye.